I think this is what happens when you put an incompetent individual in perhaps the second most important job in our country, the Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth had no business being nominated. Republicans in the Senate should not have confirmed him. And he's been there for less than a year now, maybe 7 or 8 months. And this is the result of incompetence at the highest level.
This is absolutely devastating for Pete Hegseth, and I mean that with every ounce of conviction I have. Because what just happened isn't some empty threat. It isn't another press release that gets ignored. It isn't political theater. Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense, just got served with a federal lawsuit. And the person who filed it is Senator Mark Kelly, a decorated Navy combat veteran, an astronaut, someone who's been shot at defending this country while Trump was driving casinos into bankruptcy, someone who carried the bodies of fallen astronauts while Trump was writing birthday greetings to Jeffrey Epstein, and Kelly just delivered accountability directly to Hegseth's doorstep in a way that could end his entire career. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are, but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. That's why we built John Brown Show, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. So Pete Hegseth never thought this would happen. He thought Republicans could intimidate without consequences, thought Democrats wouldn't get down in the muck and fight back, thought he could threaten Mark Kelly with censure and loss of pension, and that would be the end of it. But today, Hegseth got served. One of the dumbest criminals in Trump's administration just got hit with legal action that's going to expose his attacks on the rule of law. And he has absolutely no idea how to handle it. Share this video with everyone you know, because before we get into the lawsuit, you need to understand who Mark Kelly is and why his voice matters so much. Because Kelly went on record and laid out exactly what he was doing while Trump was living his corrupt life. And the contrast is absolutely devastating for Trump and everyone who works for him. Kelly said when Trump was driving the Taj Mahal casino into bankruptcy, Kelly was getting shot at over Iraq and Kuwait. When Trump said after 9/11 that the collapse of the Twin Towers meant he now owned the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan, Kelly was carrying flags honoring victims into space on a rocket ship. When Trump was writing birthday greetings to the monster Jeffrey Epstein in 2003, Kelly was first on the scene recovering the bodies of his fellow astronauts who died when Space Shuttle Columbia exploded during re-entry. When Trump was hosting reality shows and peddling conspiracy theories against President Obama, Kelly was sitting next to his wife's hospital bed as she recovered from a gunshot wound to the head. Think about what that comparison reveals. While Trump was committing fraud and cozying up to sex traffickers and attacking presidents, Mark Kelly was serving, flying combat missions, going into space, recovering fallen heroes, supporting his wounded wife. That's the difference between someone who actually sacrifices for this country and someone who only takes. And Kelly made it crystal clear that he's been through worse, that Trump and Pete Hegseth are not going to silence him, not going to keep him from speaking out, not going to keep him from doing his job. Make sure you're subscribed to John Brown Show, because Kelly is showing Democrats exactly how to respond to this administration's thuggery. And yes, we need to connect this back to Epstein, because that's what this is really about. Not everything Trump does is a distraction from Jeffrey Epstein, but this absolutely is. Trump is furious at Democrats like Kelly telling service members to disobey illegal orders, because Trump believes international law and American law don't govern what he can do with the military. Trump says, ironically, that he's only bound by his own morality, which is quite the oxymoron when you're talking about someone who writes birthday messages to child sex traffickers. But this is an example of how Trump abuses power. He abuses power to protect himself and protect the Epstein class. You think Trump wants a standing ICE militia just because it's fun? No. What he intends to do with it is attack you, try to silence you, take your life if necessary to protect him and his wealthy friends. And he's able to do this because we're in a government run by the dumbest people possible. That's what Mark Kelly said about Pete Hegseth before taking legal action against him. Kelly said this is what happens when you put an incompetent individual in perhaps the second most important job in the country, that Pete Hegseth had no business being nominated, that Republicans should not have confirmed him, and that after less than a year in office, we're seeing the result of incompetence at the highest level. Share this with everyone because Kelly broke down exactly what's wrong with Hegseth's leadership. He said, here's a guy who runs around on stage talking about lethality, warrior ethos, killing people. The president echoes it saying, we're going to kill people, we're good at this. But when you have leadership that speaks in those terms, they're not talking about the things that really matter, like training, like what kind of combat power do we have? Like how do we make our military more efficient and effective? Like what are the laws? Because the law does matter. That's the fundamental problem with Hegseth. He doesn't care about building a professional military. He cares about creating a personal militia for Trump. And there's a reason the ICE thugs flooding neighborhoods right now are so dumb. There's a reason they're undertrained and unqualified. There's a reason Trump's administration eliminated fitness examinations, both mental and physical, for these agents, because they don't want them trained. Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth want a private militia for Donald Trump that only listens to him and doesn't understand accountability or believe it applies to them. That's what they're after. But today, Pete Hegseth is finally being confronted with accountability. And it's breaking news. Democratic Senator Mark Kelly just sued Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, filed a civil lawsuit in federal court in Washington. And what we know at this point is that Kelly is challenging Hegseth's actions under the Administrative Procedure Act. That's the law that says government agencies can't make arbitrary and capricious decisions. And here's what Kelly is arguing. Pete Hegseth's decision to initiate a process that could demote Kelly in rank or deprive him of his pension is arbitrary and capricious. It's a violation of federal administrative law. And Kelly is being represented by Paul Fishman, a former U.S. attorney who's represented multiple people facing adverse action from the Trump administration. This is serious legal firepower going after Hegseth. And this is the only language these people understand. Accountability, not threats of violence, but hitting back, taking them to court, pointing out their criminality, standing 10 toes down and saying, yeah, Pete Hegseth is a drunk criminal and I'm going to treat him like a drunk criminal. Not just going on Sunday shows saying this administration is getting really bad, actually doing something about it, letting them know there will be accountability coming. Think about what happened that led to this lawsuit. Mark Kelly spoke out against Trump's illegal military orders, told service members they have a duty to disobey unlawful commands, said they're bound by the Constitution, not by Trump's whims. And Trump lost his mind. Trump went on social media and said Mark Kelly should be hanged, should be executed. Those are Trump's actual words about a decorated combat veteran. And then Trump ordered Pete Hegseth to go after Kelly. So Hegseth sent Kelly a letter threatening censure, threatening to reduce his rank retroactively, threatening to take away retirement benefits that Kelly earned through 25 years of naval service. All because Kelly exercised his First Amendment right to criticize unlawful presidential orders. That's retaliation. That's abuse of power. That's exactly what Kelly's lawsuit is challenging. And Kelly made it absolutely clear he's not backing down. He went on television and said, regardless of what Hegseth tries to do, he's going to continue doing his job. That Hegseth cannot go after U.S. citizens, retired service members for something they said that was truthful. Kelly said something the president didn't like. Trump said he should be hanged, executed, and then Trump got Pete Hegseth on this path that led to the letter of censure and threats to reduce rank and take retirement. Kelly told Hegseth directly that this is not going to work, that he's not backing down, not going away, going to continue doing his job. And Kelly pointed out the absurdity of the situation. When you're subject to this kind of letter simply because of your service in the military, other senators who never served, people like Donald Trump who never served, could never be subject to this, could never receive a letter like this, because Kelly is retired, because he spent 25 years in the United States Navy, because he flew 39 combat missions, almost got shot down multiple times, had a missile blow up next to his airplane once, flew in space 4 times. Because of that long career of service, they think this gives them the right to go after him personally and threaten him with criminal prosecution or execution simply because they didn't like what he said. And Kelly drew a powerful historical parallel. He said when President Dwight Eisenhower warned against the military-industrial complex, people like Pete Hegseth, if they were around, might have tried to censure the former general and president of the United States. And Kelly noted that Eisenhower wouldn't take any crap from Pete Hegseth, that Hegseth is in no way qualified for this job, that Trump should never have offered him this position, that it says more about Trump that Hegseth is in this role than it says about Hegseth. This is what we're talking about. This is what we need. This is how we fight them. This is how we get them to back down. It's the only way. Getting in the muck doesn't mean acting the same way they do. It means recognizing the stakes of this situation. That's what Mark Kelly is doing. And Democrats need to follow this model across the board. There was another surprise firing from Trump's DOJ recently, and the response should be clear. Everyone in Trump's DOJ, and it is Trump's DOJ, should be prosecuted. Democrats should not be afraid to say that. The way you fight back against the politicization of agencies, of the Department of Justice, of the Pentagon, is to go after them. You can't norms your way out of this. If you treat this as business as usual, they win. Think about what that means. The expectation from Trump's people is that there won't be lawsuits, that Mark Kelly won't fight back, that maybe he'll put out a statement and it'll stop there. But we have to show there is actual accountability coming. We have to make it clear to all these individuals that they are just as likely to be prosecuted as their bosses. Maybe that'll slow things. Maybe it'll mean more whistleblowers, more accountability, stopping the machine. Trump is trying to build of yes men up and down every single chain in government, so he feels there are no bounds on him. We need Trump to be interrupted and enjoined and stopped at every turn. And we win these lawsuits. Mark Kelly will win this lawsuit. Trump loses lawsuits at about a 95% clip. They rely on you to believe they are inevitable, and they are not. More than ever, they're waking up to that reality. Senate Republicans are turning on Trump. House Republicans are turning on Trump. Trump's own supporters are not as thrilled with the economy that's devastating them as a direct result of the senile president's own Truth Social posts. Share this with everyone because why do we have tariffs on Canada exponentially going up? Apparently because Trump got mad on Truth Social. That's the guy running the country. Spending more time finding ways to eliminate SNAP benefits and hide the Epstein files than actually governing. So talk in a language that is accountability. Talk in a language that scares these people. It's the only thing they respond to. The lawsuit Kelly filed is challenging agency action under the Administrative Procedure Act. That means Kelly is arguing that Hegseth's decision to target him has no legitimate basis, that it's arbitrary, that it's capricious, that it's retaliation for protected speech. And federal judges don't like seeing government officials abuse their power to punish critics, don't like cases where political motivation is transparent. And this case has all those elements. Trump publicly called for Kelly's execution. Then Hegseth initiated proceedings against Kelly. The timeline is obvious. The motivation is clear. The retaliation is undeniable. When a federal judge sees that evidence, when discovery reveals communications between Trump and Hegseth about targeting Kelly, the ruling is going to go against Hegseth, going to protect Kelly's benefits, going to declare Hegseth's actions unlawful. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because that's devastating for Hegseth. Once a court finds he abused his authority, that he retaliated against protected speech, that he violated administrative law, consequences follow. His credibility as defense secretary gets destroyed. His fitness for office gets questioned publicly. His actions get exposed as political retaliation rather than legitimate military discipline. And Hegseth is already the least qualified person to ever run the Pentagon. He got the job because he was on Fox News, because Trump liked him on television, not because he has relevant experience, not because he's demonstrated judgment, not because he understands what defense leadership requires. He's an incompetent drunk who runs around talking about killing people instead of actually managing the military effectively. Now he's getting sued by a decorated veteran for abusing power, for retaliating against constitutional speech, for weaponizing the Defense Department against critics. That's indefensible. That's the kind of thing that should result in resignation or removal. because you cannot have a defense secretary who uses his position to settle political scores for the president. Think about what this lawsuit means beyond Kelly's individual case. It tells other potential whistleblowers that fighting back is possible, that you don't have to accept retaliation quietly, that legal remedies exist, that accountability can be pursued. And that message is critical because Trump and Hegseth want to create an environment where nobody dares speak out, where fear silences dissent, where threats keep everyone in line. Kelly's courage in filing this lawsuit disrupts that entire strategy, shows that resistance works, that legal action has teeth, that courts will check abuse of power, and when Kelly wins, when Hegseth loses in federal court, that establishes precedent, creates legal protections, makes future retaliation harder. Share this video because Republicans who confirmed Hegseth are watching this. Some are probably regretting their votes, wondering if defending Hegseth is worth the political cost. Looking at how this plays with voters, calculating whether distancing from Hegseth helps their own re-election prospects. If enough Republicans decide Hegseth is a liability, Trump might have to cut him loose. The broader pattern here is incompetence and criminality throughout Trump's administration. These are the dumbest people possible running critical government functions, and they're doing it deliberately. They want incompetent thugs who don't understand law or accountability, who will follow Trump's orders without question, who see themselves as his personal enforcers rather than as public servants. That's why ICE agents are so poorly trained, why qualification standards got lowered, why fitness requirements got eliminated. They're not building professional law enforcement, they're building a private militia for Trump, people who will do whatever he demands to protect him and his wealthy friends, to silence critics, to intimidate whistleblowers, to attack anyone who threatens Trump's power or exposes his connection to people like Epstein. Make sure you're subscribed because Kelly is modeling exactly how to fight this. File lawsuits, force them into court, make them defend their actions under oath, document everything, build legal records, create consequences. Don't assume strongly worded statements are enough. They're not. Action is required, and action means using every legal tool available, seeking injunctions, demanding accountability, forcing officials to explain their decisions, building records that can be used for future prosecutions, not by becoming like Trump's people, but by recognizing the stakes, by understanding that normal political norms don't constrain them, by using legal mechanisms aggressively. Hegseth fears this lawsuit, fears what discovery will reveal, fears losing in court, fears the precedent it sets, fears looking weak and incompetent in front of a federal judge. That fear is appropriate. That's what accountability looks like. That's what happens when abuse of power gets challenged rather than tolerated. Stay tuned because this lawsuit is just beginning. Discovery will take time. Court proceedings will generate headlines. Evidence will surface showing communications between Trump and Hegseth about targeting Kelly, showing the political motivation behind these threats, showing the complete lack of legitimate justification. And eventually, a judge will rule. And when that ruling comes down against Hegseth, when his actions get declared unlawful, that becomes part of the permanent record, part of his legacy, part of the evidence that he was unfit for office and abused his power. And it sends a message to every other Trump official considering similar retaliation. That message is, you can be held accountable. Courts will check your abuse. Lawsuits work, and victims have remedies. This is how democracy defends itself. Through institutions, through courts, through people brave enough to stand up, through lawsuits that force officials to face consequences. Kelly is showing what resistance looks like. And Hegseth is learning that being Trump's attack dog comes with costs he's not prepared to pay.